Welcome, everyone. We have a very special week for you. We are together with our friend, Dr. Stephen Masley, who is a physician, nutritionist, a trained chef. I love that part. An author and the creator of the very successful public television show, 30 Days to a Younger Heart. He helps motivated people tune up their brain, their heart, and sexual performance. Now, we have talked about that, haven't we? How your brain, your heart, and your genitals are all connected because it's all about blood flow. He is a fellow with the American Heart Association and the American College of Nutrition, which is so important to do those two things together. His research focuses on the impact of lifestyle choices on brain function, heart disease, and aging. He's the best-selling author of a number of books, 10 Years Younger, The 30-Day Heart Tune-Up, Smart Fat, The Better Brain Solution, and his latest book, The Mediterranean Method. Plus, he's also written a number of scientific articles. We're so excited to have you on with us, Stephen.
Thank you for being here.
I think
I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you. I think our audience really is going to be interested about the things we're going to talk about. The brain-heart connection, the brain-heart-gut connection, the brain-heart-gut genital connection. I mean, all of this is just
it really is
so important.
And I want to see a picture of that book again, because your book's coming out soon, right? It's beautiful.
December 31st.
Gorgeous. So we always love promoting books that are in line with what we recommend, and people get just more and more recipes. So that's fabulous. I'm assuming there's some easy things in there for people who don't like to cook.
Easy to prepare. And this is my first book ever where it comes out with like photos in it,
Beautiful.
To show some of the so some of the dishes.
Lovely.
That's a first for me, that
gorgeous.
Something that you have photos of the meals as well, which that goes with the Mediterranean eating, right? The food is beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Colorful as well. So let's start in this podcast and tell us your story. How did you get interested in being a different kind of physician?
Well, you may not know this, but my dad was a surgeon and he worked like 90 hours a week. To see my dad as a child, I basically rode my bike to the hospital and I would find him in the emergency room, in surgery, in the ICU. And it was very intensive. So here's someone who's not old enough to drive a car, who goes to see his dad, gets scrubs on, scrubs up. And my dad usually would make me do a few stitches or something.
Wow.
And when I would see them in the intensive care unit, I thought, wow, this is awful. This is what they do to people in the hospital? This is terrible.
Yep.
So, people loved my dad. We had so many fruit cakes over the holidays, we could hardly find our own presents. But I dreamed that when I grew up, I'd be a doctor that kept people out of the hospital so they didn't need surgery and they didn't need to go in the intensive care unit. And that was my dream as a child. But you can imagine going to medical school and going through residency. It was frustrating because all our time was spent in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I had to reinvent myself, get a nutrition degree, go back to cooking school.
I love that.
To get to my childhood roots.
That's
what
amazing.
I wanted out of medicine, that was quite a journey.
That's amazing. You'll relate to this then, because I'm a neurosurgical ICU nurse. And so I worked in a level A trauma unit. And I had a really interesting story. There was a surgeon. He was a well-known surgeon on our unit. I worked at Loma Linda, so we saw a lot of high-profile cases. And I used to see him outside the hospital. He was overweight and he would smoke. And I'm like, how is that possible? How does this surgeon smoke, knowing what he knows, eat the way he eats, like stay overweight? I'm confused. But I also know, in their defense, their lifestyle is really hard to contend with. The hours that they work and, and such, it's really difficult. Well, I used to come in with my lunch bag every single day, and I was really into weightlifting at the time. So my lifestyle was the opposite of what a lot of people in the medical field is. And so I'd come in with my lunch bag, and he walks in one day to the lunchroom and he says, all of that healthy eating and exercise is only going to add a few years to your life. And my jaw hits the table. And I looked at him, I'm like, have you looked around our unit? It's really not about the number of years I live. It's really more about how I live those years. Like, I was so confused that,
Absolutely.
so it was just that Western medicine philosophy is just so different from the preventative medicine, so it's just so interesting. So you'll relate to that, I thought, based on what you saw.
Absolutely. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So tell us more. Why chef school?
That's so great.
I was doing research. I worked at Group Health Cooperative, which now is part of Kaiser. They are now part of the Kaiser family. And I was doing research studies on how to help reverse heart disease and what could people do for osteoporosis. And in the studies, when I did surveys and questionnaires on how to improve this, what the subject said over and over is, if you just gave us recipes that were easy to prepare, the food would taste good, and I could find the ingredients at the store, that's what I'll make, and that would make all the difference. I don't need all this detailed information.
Right.
And that was like a light bulb going off for me, that I really did need to start writing a lot more recipes than I ever wrote prescriptions as a physician. And that was transforming. And once I started doing that, that really did change my practice. I became more food oriented and practical. So yeah, I want meals to be easy to prepare, delicious. Your family and friends love them, and the nutrients nourish your heart, brain, and soul.
Right.
So I got a fellowship in nutrition with the American College of Nutrition, and I went to the Four Seasons and did a chef internship, and I got the results from my studies improved dramatically.
That's awesome.
So writing, I mean, that's like a headline, writing
Recipes.
more recipes than prescriptions.
That's a great soundbite, right? By the way, that's fantastic. Because there's not a lot of doctors who have that mindset. They're not trained that way. I think it's becoming a little more, the focus is shifting, but it's still not the norm.
Oh, but not the norm. Yeah.
No.
So, our friend Mark Hyman, I think, is the same way. And tell us a little bit more about some of the studies you were doing and how they informed your practice.
Well, we looked at a diet intervention exercise trial, and it was for people with heart disease. And we were looking at, could we change, behavior, risk factors. Initially, we tried adding an Ornish program. This was back in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get even 5% of people with heart disease to follow it. They weren't, and even if they tried it, they would drop out within a month. So I realized this isn't going to work. And I'd always had an interest in a Mediterranean diet. And I thought, what if I did a Mediterranean version of this, where we would add more healthy fat, really focus on vegetable, fruit, beans, nuts, healthy fats, herbs and spices, make food taste great, simple to prepare. And my results were awesome. I mean, it was pretty amazing. And so when I ran my clinic for, over time, we would notice our average patient was shrinking plaque over time. We had hundreds of people that shrunk their artery plaque by more than 10 years.
Wow.
That the brain cognitive performance, doing CNS vital sign, our average patient's processing speed increased. We had hundreds of people who had more than a 25% improvement in brain processing, in brain function.
Amazing.
So we could see that lifestyle had a huge impact. So I changed my whole perspective. If I put someone on a med, it's not like I never wrote a prescription. Let's be realistic. But I would usually say, I'm writing this because I failed you somehow.
Oh, interesting.
If I'd really made an impact, I wouldn't need to write this. And hopefully someday you won't need it. But for now, let's go ahead and start this. But the key is not this prescription. It's the other choices you're making.
I love that.
When I made, that was quite a change in my practice.
So
Wow.
what you're saying, because I don't think most people believe this, is that you can actually decrease the amount of plaque you have on your blood vessels.
Most people don't know that.
Oh yeah, we've published this. That we were doing carotid IMT for 10 years, and we monitor every patient and track them over time. And our average patient's plaque was shrinking. The average American is growing in about 1.5% more plaque every year.
So that reminds me, I mean, that sort of sounds like what we tell people, that you can make your brain better. It doesn't have to get worse as you age. And most people don't know that. They don't believe that. So, but you're saying you actually found the same thing in your practice, that cognitively they were getting better as their hearts got better. Because
Exactly.
what's good for your brain is good for your heart, is good for your genitals. So.
Yes, it's good. Your
I love that you said
circulation,
that.
your tissues, your function, everything. I mean, it all goes together. You know, we're a matrix.
Right. And, I have to say, as someone who suffered a lot, my health was terrible, which is why I went into this field and went on this journey and wrote my book, The Omni Diet, was because I was just such a mess as a kid. I was one of those very sickly kids, ended up with thyroid cancer that was metastatic, kept coming back, couldn't figure out why, was on 9 medications, and it just didn't make sense to me. So as a nurse, I went, there's got to be a better way. And I went on that journey myself. And I just remember feeling as a patient, like, why is no one addressing me as a person? I keep getting sent to all these specialists. They keep layering my meds, not communicating with one another. It didn't make sense to me. I'm not a bunch of individual organs or systems. I'm a person. Like, why are people not addressing me as a person? And I'm a nurse. So imagine how frustrating it is to someone who has no concept of what they're doing with this. It's hard. It's very frustrating. So I applaud
I'm sure
you.
it was, but you obviously had wonderful results once you got out, once you've taken charge of your own health. So
Well, and that's what we tell people,
I applaud you for that.
become your own advocate. And it's easier when you're in the
Absolutely.
health industry. So if you're not, then you find people like you, right? That's what we recommend. You find people that are holistic, that look at you like a person. You're looking at their heart, their brain function, their genital function, their sexual function. You're looking at the whole person. That's so important.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the brain heart connection, which is just incredibly important. And we're very happy that Dr. Masley's a brain warrior.
Let me see
with us.
let's see his book one more time. That is such a pretty book. So if people want this book, when and where can they get it?
It's available wherever books are sold on December 31st.
Excellent.
And on pre-order at any time.
Excellent.
It's called The Mediterranean Method. You're listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Stay with us. Your heart is coming up next.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.